Now, I want to talk to you to something today that is kind of interesting, that brought to me something that concerns not only everyone that lives here on Earth, but all the universities and schools. Now, the major problem that we're having within any school system is judgment. We are judging the kids by their looks and the way they live. Now, it's not our place to judge anyone. So I want to start and ask you one major question. What world do we live in? I got a cold. What world do we live in? Now, everyone will normally say we live here on Earth. That means we have an earthly existence. So therefore, we do things day to day by choice. And God gave us free will. Whether you believe in God or not is irrelevant at this point. For without a cause, there would be no reaction. So God gave us many things, but the main one was He gave us free will to choose. So day to day, as we live out our lives, we make choices every day, and a lot of times they're automatic. Now, when we get up in the morning, we go in, we go to the bathroom, we go in, and a lot of times, some people will brush their teeth and take a shower and get ready and go to work, and then go in and get dressed. And then if they have time, they will stop and get something to eat and then go to work. Well, this is our earthly existence. We have to work to make money, to provide the many things that we need, and also if we have a family, to provide the many things that our family needs. So, when you're getting into worldly things, especially when you're getting into college, because now college will teach you there is no God, and therefore you become an atheist. Now, if you ask the teacher that teaches that class, when it comes right down to it, ask him, if it comes right down to, is there a God, he will tell you there is. Even though he can't teach that in class, that there is a God or isn't a God. It's your association with the class and your understanding that he is teaching there is no God. Well, he's not teaching there is a God that he can teach about. So he has to keep all religion out of school. No matter what religion it is, he has to not talk about religion. So in history, if you don't talk about religious history, your book would be half empty. in history class, because a lot of the wars that went on and a lot of the fights were holy wars. So this is what the problem, and what's really interesting is when you get into the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights and all that are founded on the basics within the Bible. If you go through the Constitution, there is even Bible verses in it. So if you took everything out of the Constitution that is biblical, you'd have to throw it away and start over. So, when we live on this world, we come to the understanding and we are taught there is no God. Now, the reason for this is because of the Lucifer rebellion. And then you're going, okay, we've heard the name Lucifer, but not rebellion. Now, it started many, many years ago. Let me tell you the years. Okay. It is 235,000 years ago that Lucifer decided that he wanted to be God. So he took over some of the planets, and one of them, you see, Satan was the guardian of many galaxies. Now, once Lucifer talked him into following him, then all the galaxies within Lucifer's domain become corrupt. And of course, one of them, with Caligascar, was the planetary prince of Earth, which they call Urantia. And so once Caligascar joined the rebellion, that means Earth was fully in the rebellion. So everything that was told from then on, and 225,000 years within this solar system, we were lied to. So how do we define what the real truth is if we don't know what the truth is? It would be like writing a book, but you can't read it. So, and this is what the problem was. Even though God was still in command and still reigned, he stopped a lot of things from happening within the outer solar system. So he quarantined this area. So once that happened, all communication between us and God stopped. So all of a sudden we're left with just our belief. So when it come to that, there was a lot of the followers of God, which was a lot of the angels, did not defect. They were loyal to God no matter what. So this is pretty much what saved the earth from total annihilation and destruction. So, and Satan was Lucifer's general, and Caligascar was part of the rebellion. There was a lot. So God sent Adam and Eve back to Earth to try to set things straight. Well, Caligascar was there, which is a planetary prince, and he lied to Eve, and Eve had a child out of wedlock because the mission said that they were not to interact with the inhabitants until they were 1 million strong, and Adam and Eve was never to mingle with the inhabitants, just the children. So when that happened, the mission was over, and Adam didn't want to be left there, so he went and messed with one of the natives, and then that was in the first garden, and then they left because once they had found, the tribe that had found out that lived close to the garden went and killed all the other tribe that deceived Eve. So they had to leave. So, and the Bible story starts with the second garden. So, there's just so much that we have been lied to. So, let's get back to the question of what world do we live in? Well, we live here on earth. We do earthly things. But we don't only live in an earthly environment. We also live in a spiritual world. Now, God's definition of us was really kind of interesting. He told us that there was two things that he told us that because of our disobedience, we have sinned against him. Sinned means to do wrong. So if we was obedient, we would not sin. So I call it the ramification of disobedience is sin. Now, and also he told us that we are spiritual beings living an earthly existence. So, and this is why we have a spiritual soul, is because that is our real existence, is spiritual. We are born here on earth to experience earthly flesh. And then when we die, once we get saved, which means to survive death, when we get to heaven, we're going to stand in front of God. He said, I know you. I have a job for you. Now, what was really interesting, Lucifer and Satan and almost all the followers stood in front of God and told him he didn't exist. Now, that's one time you'd really like to be there and stand on the side and watch what happens when you know that God is standing there and somebody is telling God that he doesn't exist, but yet he's standing in front of him talking to him. That was really kind of interesting. It was almost like the wife went to they had like a anniversary party once a year for her ex-husband's family. Well, she wanted to go. I said, go ahead. Well, she's sitting there talking to 2 or 3 people, and her daughter was sitting there, and everybody was talking, and one of the girls looked over at her daughter and says, is your mom still alive? But yet, she was sitting right there beside her and talking to her. Is she alive? that was a good one. We passed around that for quite a while. But it's the same idea. Is you could be sitting talking to God and not know it. So it's really kind of interesting, even here on earth. Do we actually talk to an angel? Or do we talk to somebody that is an angel but looks human? This is something that really is kind of interesting. Now I want to get into the world that we live in. We live in two worlds. So therefore, one of the worlds is earthly and one is spiritual. And that was really kind of interesting to where when I found out that we as spiritual beings live in an earthly existence. So that means we are purely spiritual in a physical body. So no matter what we do here on earth, someday we're going to stand in front of God and God is going to say, do you believe in me? And do you want to follow me? Your answer is either yes or no. No, you will cease to exist. Yes, you will be given a job in heaven. So this is what I'm trying to get across to you. No matter what we do here on earth, if we get saved, which is even better because we can live out our lives with God inside of us, guiding us from day to day, and He is living in us. That's really something when you really get into that. Now, my next thing is judgment. This is where judgment is a big one, because the fact is, judgment is when you come into a store and you want to buy something, and they say something and they want something that you don't normally make or sell, but because of the way they live, you will not serve them. Now, it doesn't matter what they do and how they live. You will not serve them for their earthly existence. You are judging them on how they live and the choices they make. It's not our job. And you're going, yes, well, eye for an eye. I said, that's not right. Jesus never taught that. Jesus taught to love thy neighbor as thyself and to help everyone. Not to smite anybody or kill. We're not supposed to kill nothing. Not animals, not humans, nothing. When Jesus said, do not kill, He meant everything, including the animals. That was really kind of interesting when He said that. So what part of don't you understand? Do not kill. And all the Muslims and all the Christians and all the other denominations that think it's all right to have a holy war and kill. Do not kill. That is one of God's major commandments. besides love your neighbor as yourself and to help everyone you can and follow the 10 Commandments that Moses gave us through God. So do not judge. Now the next major point is really interesting, because this will prove do not judge. It's not our job. And you go, what do you mean? It's not our job. And then you go, what do you mean it's not our job? It's not our job. Our job is to teach and preach salvation unto the entire world and get everyone saved. Now, saved means to survive death. Our job is to get everyone saved. Nothing more, nothing less. So that means that when anybody talks about they're an atheist or whatever their religion or how they live, and you judge them, it's not your job. Your job is to get them saved, and then, here's the big one, and let God do His job and change them from within. Aha! All of a sudden, I was talking to one of the women here, and she started judging people and started doing it. I said, it's not our job. She goes, what do you mean? I said, to judge people is not our job. She goes, what do you mean? I said, it's not our job. Our job is to get everyone saved and let God do His job to change everybody from within. Boy, it took me a little while to get across. You have to understand our job is not to judge anyone spiritually or physically here on earth. Now, you're going to say, well, if you run a business, you're not going to take and hire a thief if you're handling money. And then you're going, I'm still not going to judge them on how they live, but if they have an earthly record that prohibits them for working at certain jobs, you have to follow, get this, man's laws first. And everybody's going, what do you mean man's laws first? You have to follow man's laws first. If you do something wrong, you're going to pay with it with your body or your money. No matter what. So we have to follow man's laws first. This is why I keep telling you, we live in two worlds. We have to follow the rules in both worlds. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's really hard. So you have to come to the conclusion that you, no matter what, you have to follow man's laws. Now, if you run a church and you need a secretary, or you need an assistant pastor, or you need someone that just to help out, well, it's your job to find someone that will fill that job, not earthly, spiritually. Now, he could be the worst thief in the city. Who would you rather have take care of your money? He knows all the tricks. He knows everything that's going on. And once he gets saved, and he repents of all his sins, and he becomes trustworthy. But how do you know? At that point in time, you will know. So you hire him for that job. Now, there's always a 99.9% chance that he'll run off with the money. Well, they only do that once. Money, once it's spent, is gone. But if you have a job and you keep the job, it's a long time money maker. So that's the problem when you're getting into worldly things and judgment. Now, there was somebody that said, well, you wouldn't hire a murderer to be the secretary of your church. And I said, well, that's an earthly judgment that was passed upon them by an earthly judge, and they were sentenced. Now, if they had got out and they had paid their time, now, would they make a good one to help around the church? Well, if they were saved and they had repented, then yes. But if they had not, then no. Because you're going to replace them and you're going to put them in a spiritual job, not an earthly job. Even though it's going to be earthly, you have to do earthly things, but it's within a spiritual world. For if you're taking care of the money, it is for the spiritual outreach to get others saved. So, now, the last thing, and my point is, our job as Christians is to get people saved. Our job is to teach and preach salvation unto the lost and unto the entire world. Let God do his job, and let him judge everyone. Once we get them saved, God will judge them from within. So, we live in two worlds. Do not judge. And we are spiritual beings living an earthly experience. And we live in two worlds, earth and spiritual. Amen.